Hello everyone, my name is Miranda, or you probably know me better by my Instagram name at Mother of Serpants. Today is Tuesday, January 8th, and this past Sunday there was a Reptile Expo in Manchester, New Hampshire that I went to. So I know that there were a lot of Reptile Expos that occurred over the weekend, and I just want to point out and start off with a disclaimer by saying that Manchester was probably by far the smallest, least diverse, unexciting expo out of all the ones that happened this weekend. Reptile keeping just isn't really that big in New England, and because of that, when there's a room of like maybe 50 vendors, it's seen as massive. There is an expo that occurs once a year in Maine, and it's literally just a handful of vendors, but I like it because it's super small and cozy, and you really get to talk with the breeders. And this is actually where I got Hodor, my boa constrictor, here. Before anyone asks any questions about him, just know that I do intend to do a video about boa constrictors. This is the first expo that I went to alone. I didn't really plan it that way. Unfortunately, that's just how it worked out. It was a really busy weekend. I really wanted to vlog the Reptile Expo, and I did, but since I'm just such like a weird, quiet, shy person, I felt really weird and awkward doing it just by myself when there wasn't anyone with me. So it turned into me just going around to different vendors, saying hello to them, and then just filming all of their animals and leaving, which probably, if I was a normal person and had just said, hey, I'm vlogging for my YouTube channel, they probably would have been like, oh, that's so cool, and maybe they could have like been introduced and featured. Unfortunately, my brain doesn't think that way, and in the moment I was just really scared and uncomfortable. So I do have footage of the Reptile Expo that I'm going to obviously show, and then I'm just going to do a voiceover for it. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. There is another Reptile Expo also in Manchester on March 31st, and I do intend on vlogging that one. Probably my step-siblings are going to go, probably my mom, so I'm not going to be alone, so hopefully they're going to make the vlogging experience better. A lot of people were asking me if I had wanted to get anything at the Reptile Expo, if I did get anything, and I did go with the intent to scope out dumpy or white tree frogs. I've been researching in on dumpies because I think that, I don't know, they're probably the best fit for me and for what I want. I wasn't really sure going in what the expo was going to have in terms of dumpies and if they would even have any, because I know that in the past the Manchester Reptile Expo has been really saturated with ball pythons, leopard geckos, and crested geckos. But I was really pleasantly surprised with the selection they had of everything. The answer is no, I did not get a new reptile, I did not get a dumpy frog, I didn't come home with anything, and there are a few reasons for that. The first one is that I was really surprised with the amount of dumpies that there were at the expo, and I wanted to really research breeders before I got one because I didn't want to support a breeder that just could have been bad, that could have mistreated their animals. I know that there are a lot of wholesale breeders that have been starting to go to that expo, and not that I really have anything against wholesale breeders, or I'm saying that you shouldn't buy from them, but you don't really always know the quality of care that you're getting when you purchase from a wholesale breeder, and the reason for that is because really what wholesale does is they just buy animals in bulk for a discounted price from a breeder who maybe is overstocked and really needs to get rid of something. But the thing with this is a lot of the times the animals aren't properly quarantined, and as soon as they go in, they're usually resold very quickly, so there's really no monitoring. A lot of the time the wholesale breeder doesn't even know if there's any issues with it. It's just really all about business, and I'm not saying that they don't take care of their animals. There was a dumpy frog that I really wanted, but it was available from a wholesale breeder, and I knew that they weren't really even going to be able to tell me that much about it. It was super cute. It didn't even have a price on it. It didn't say the morph. I know it wasn't a regular. I would rather purchase from a reputable breeder where I really know where it's coming from. A lot of the vendors for the adults didn't even know the sex of the frogs, and I had really intended to purchase a male adult or a sub-adult. So that was one of the reasons that I didn't get a dumpy frog. Honestly, if I wanted one bad enough, I probably could have seen past it. One of the other reasons that I decided not to get a frog on Sunday was because I personally didn't feel that I was ready to get a frog. I've really been wanting one for a few months now, and I do really want to get one, and I'm still going to, but I just felt that at this point in time, I still need to do a little bit of research. I just want to make sure that it's properly cared for. I didn't even have a setup. I did end up buying a terrarium and lights and basically everything, you know, decorations at the expo that I haven't even set up yet. But to me, I think it's really important, especially with new species, that you already have an enclosure up and waiting for them. I've personally never had experience with lighting before because all of my ball pythons and snakes and gecko, they have heating pads, and the more I thought about it, I would just feel so much better if I had a setup, I had a tank and everything ready to go for the frog, and then in March I can just go and buy the frog and put it directly into the enclosure and the frog isn't waiting. I have always thought that it's better to wait no matter how much you want a reptile, amphibian, whatever. Always make sure that you're properly prepared. Never cheap out so that you can get the animal quicker. Animals' health and well-being is always the top priority, so just because you really want something, even if you can't afford it at the moment, it will be so much better in the long run if you just wait until you have a proper setup and get the right equipment instead of just cheaping out. It'll always be better in the end, I promise you. Waiting sucks, I know, but that doesn't mean that you should cheap out because you are impatient. This is a live animal that is relying on you to take care of it. When you buy an animal, you basically sign a contract that says, hey, I understand that you have very special needs, and I promise you that I'm going to take care of them as best as I can through sickness and in health. But seriously, every snake that I bought, I've always had tubs ready for them to go in. There was never any waiting time. When I first got Elton, I had his enclosure running for 2 weeks just to make sure that it could maintain the proper heat and humidity. It's for the best if everything is set up beforehand. I'm just saying, make sure you know everything's gonna be okay. Remember, it's a live animal that's depending on you, so make the animal your priority, and then like the animal's wants and needs, and then like your wants and needs are down here. Alright, so with that all being said, I'm just going to do a voiceover of the footage since I was too much of a person to do it myself. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Alright, welcome to the New England Reptile Expo located in Manchester, New Hampshire. This one wasn't quite as dominated by leopard geckos and ball pythons as the other ones were. Of course, as I say this, there's tons of leopard geckos and gargoyle geckos and cresteds right there. In all reality, this breeder had a large variety of lizards for sale, and it was really cool to see all of them. Of course, over here we have all of our obligatory ball pythons. Lots and lots of vendors, that's what they specialize in around here, is just ball pythons. A lot of them don't even do, the fancy morphs. You get a lot of single genes here, which I think is important. This one had a lot of boa constrictors. Like I said, this expo wasn't as saturated with just ball pythons as it normally is. As you can see, there's many king snakes here, lots of colubrids. Unfortunately, I'm not that big of a fan of colubrids, so I didn't actually record a lot of them. But you can see in the footage here that there were lots of corn snakes and king snakes, and honestly, I don't even know what else colubrids are. Lots of chameleons and lizards and iguanas. I don't really know the difference between all of them, so I'm gonna let all of you just kind of look at them and take it all in as you see it. Over here, this vendor had a lot of boa constrictors, and it really seemed that for whatever reason this season, albinos and sunglows are really in. This was all that a lot of breeders really had for morphs, and I'm not sure if those are becoming more popular. This vendor right here is called JCP Boas. They are an excellent breeder that I highly recommend, obviously specializing in boa constrictors and ball pythons. They are actually where I purchased my albino black pastel ball python Khaleesi. So all their animals are in great health. They are just so healthy. They have a gigantic variety of them. They have so many morphs to choose from. I highly recommend JCP Boas. They truly care about their animals, and I just cannot say enough good things about them. They're very fair priced. As you can see, that there is a pewter lesser black pastel that I fell in love with and almost took her home. Anyway, if you were ever in New England, or I'm not sure if they ship, always try to see what JPC Boas has because they are fantastic. This Burmese python right here stole my heart. I wanted so badly to take her home. Unfortunately, Burmese and retics are illegal in Maine, so for that reason I can't own one. Some gorgeous examples of carpet pythons right here. Honestly, if you want a species that you can interact with that isn't just going to sit still and that makes an excellent display animal, I highly recommend carpet pythons. The only thing with them is that they do get rather large, so just make sure that you have the proper room for them before purchasing one. Now, I'm not sure if this vendor did this intentionally, but their marketing tactic was genius. They had a bright red tablecloth on top of a bunch of bright green animals, and it just made their table pop. People were drawn to it from the start. They were definitely getting a lot of business. It seemed that their animals were in good health. They had a huge variety to choose from, and honestly, I was super impressed with them. Of course, here are the dumpy frogs that stole my heart. There was just a bunch in that tank, and I wanted to take all of them home. A bunch of monitor lizards under here, some tortoises. This vendor was kind of a jack of all trades, in which they had so many species to choose from of snakes, lizards, amphibians, you name it, they had it. To say that if you were ever interested in getting an axolotl, I recommend going to Axolotls Anonymous. I'm not really sure where they're based off of, but they are the sweetest people ever. They are always willing to chat and answer any questions, and they truly care about their animals. And look how adorable these are. Wouldn't you love to have your own mudkip? Seriously, I definitely recommend Axolotls Anonymous. Alright, if you are as scared as spiders as I am, I thoroughly apologize for this footage. I did want to try to film at least everything for people who are interested in invertebrates. I'm certainly not one of those people. It's tarantulas, centipedes, scorpions, they creep me out. I can appreciate that they're extremely interesting pets, that they are wicked interesting and cool, and I understand why people would want them. I'm just not one of those people. I still wanted to show them off because at this expo they had quite the variety of different sizes of tarantulas and scorpions and centipedes. It was kind of gross. I'm trying to appreciate their beauty, but they make it very hard sometimes. This expo is really cool in the sense that I feel like a lot of breeders who are from New England were finally branching out into a lot of recessive morphs. As you can see, that is a VPI snowball python, and that was my first time seeing one in person. At this expo, there was also a panda pied, which was my first time ever seeing one in person. I never expected to see one at the New Hampshire Reptile Expo. Very, very cool to see. So obviously breeders are kind of like expanding what they're working with in New England, which was really, really interesting because sometimes it gives me hope that even though I live in this state, it is possible to achieve double recessives and just hard to breed ball python morphs. Now right here is actually the wholesale breeder that I mentioned before that was selling the dumpy frog that I wanted. Not a lot of these frogs or reptiles in general had any sort of info on them. They were just kind of placed in tubs and then on the table. I'm sure that if I had inquired, they maybe could have told me something, but it still seemed really weird. Now this vendor did something that I thought was very interesting. Instead of just putting their babies on display, they also had subadult and adult ball pythons, and whether or not they just really wanted to sell their adults or they were just trying to show people that they do get bigger than when they're babies, I think that it's really important to show people that they don't stay small forever. And unfortunately, a lot of times vendors don't really educate on the care of ball pythons. They're just really eager to make a sale. Serpants, and I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. That is all that I have for footage. I'm going to include some pictures that I took, also the pictures of the panda pied. I do have the name of the breeder for the panda pied that I'm going to link because he was such a cool person. I was able to have a really nice conversation with him about breeding and kind of like how to safely incubate eggs with super black pastels. So that was really interesting to see. I did want to talk about a few things about Reptile Expo etiquette just before, you know, it's kind of like a little ending note. So obviously Reptile Expos are super cool. It's a really nice way to see a lot of breeders, a lot of vendors, a lot of different species. But the thing with that is you have people who are coming in from many different states, many different animals, and a lot of times these animals have been exposed to maybe different germs and bacterias and built up kind of a resistance. And this is how a lot of reptile diseases are spread. Expos are a breeding ground for reptile mites, and if you don't know what mites are, they're essentially just fleas for reptiles, nasty to take care of. It's better to just avoid it if you can, and it's for this reason and just the spread of reptile illnesses in general that it is recommended to leave your snakes at home, leave your reptiles at home. If you have a snake and you're not vending and you just want to bring it in as a pet, don't leave it at home. If you care about the animal, leave it at home. Don't bring it with you. If you decide to bring in an outside reptile, you're exposing your reptile to all of these potentially unknown germs and bacteria, and you have a chance of getting your reptile sick. And that's something that I'm sure that you don't want. You don't want your snake to be sick. You want it to be in good health. So don't bring in your outside reptiles if you're not planning on selling them. The second one is, even if you don't hold any reptiles, if you go home and you have intentions to handle your own reptiles, it is a good idea that you change whatever clothes that you're wearing, put them immediately in the wash, and scrub your hands really well with either Dawn dish soap or something, you know, non-scented that's not going to irritate your reptile. And it's because even if you didn't handle a snake with mites, you don't know where you might have picked it up. You don't know if you brushed up against someone who has snake mites. And since they're so easily spread, it's just a good idea to be safe than sorry. So as much as you want to enjoy expos, there are a few precautions that you should take before you go to one and after you go to one. And I just wanted to let people know because sometimes people just want to show off their animals. They might want to like bring their snakes in. They might want to bring their lizards in. Don't do that. For the good of the animal, leave yours at home and leave, you know, people bringing snakes in, leave that to the vendors, and just always make sure that you are clean when you handle your snakes after going to an expo. Okay, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed.